So I'm just going to, as a recap, just to run over why we're doing this, just to reiterate why we're doing this as well, and some of the things that we've covered. So, like I said, like I've been saying throughout the last 5 weeks, the reason why we're doing this is because we realize that the supply of the demand that comes as a result of the university students that are graduating every year has overridden the supply of jobs that are available in the market. Our goal through this webinar series is to inspire the enterprising mind to start their own businesses, to start creating the jobs for the future. So that's the focus while we're doing this. And as a sign of commitment, we are promising to help any willing participant who wants to kickstart their journey, to help them to find the seed fund for their business. So that is our commitment to you as the audience who is listening to us today. If you're looking to, so we just don't want you to listen alone. We want you to actually implement. So go ahead and take action. So sometimes we watch a lot of inspiring videos on YouTube or different webinar sessions that we may attend. But in most cases, sometimes those information that we imbibe do not actually translate into action. So we are actually encouraging you to do that, and I'm going to leave that to the end to reemphasize that as well. So over the last 5 weeks, what some of the things we've covered, the first topic that we looked into was identifying and building the right idea. And that was by Olaolu Ogundeji, the chief storyteller of Nude Experience. And this was not just about building the right idea, but also about finding your own brand identity. Some of the things he mentioned was identify a problem that you can not only just meet, but you can exceed. So these are some of the things that he spoke about. You can always go back to the recording. Then we had Mr. Yomi Odukoya, who spoke about identifying and building the right team. So once you've identified your own brand identity, then you need the right infrastructure around you to help you to bring that identity into life. And he talked about some of the roles as well that are important in your organization. So like the entrepreneur yourself, you might be the CEO, or you might choose to take another role within the organization that you feel might be more useful for you. Or you might have your, depending on the type of business you are, you might have your CTO, you might have which is your chief technological officer, you might have your CFO, which is very, very integral. And we also talk about when exactly you need a CFO, your CRO, and your COO, the operational person that understands the full detail of your business, and many more nuggets that he shared. But go ahead and watch on the video. We've actually created a playlist for all these webinar sessions as well, so you don't miss any. Then we spoke about identifying and reaching the right audience. So Anna Oyewole walked us through your kind of like an avatar of what your target audience would look like and how is the best way for you to reach them. So now that you've identified your idea, you know the kind of team that you're building around yourself. Now, how do you communicate your personal brand identity to your target audience? How do you identify them, and how do you communicate your identity to them? Then we spoke about knowing your numbers and budget control. So we had Mrs. Miriam Shonaya, who came and then talked about the different financial instruments that we can put in place to manage the finances of the business. Because sometimes, especially when you feel like you're making money, and when you look at your cash flow forecast, you discover that even though you're making money, but there's no actual cash in the business, and you might not be able to meet your expenses and your financial obligations. So she put all these things into place. How do you budget? How do you forecast? And how do you plan for the next 12 months and even beyond as well? And she spoke about the profit and loss account. And these are some of the key things that when you are going for business finance, or you're speaking to a VC, for example, these are some of the things that they would want to see, to know that you've actually taken your business seriously. Then last week we spoke about the compliance side of business, in terms of the what are the things that you need to put in place, what are the legal vehicles that you're going to use to run your business. Are you going to be a sole trader? Are you going to be a limited liability company, a PLC, depending on how far along you are, if you're looking to just kickstart like that as well. I'll talk about if you're going to be a social entrepreneur. For example, are you going to start up a social enterprise instead of going for the for profit route? Talked about profit sharing and so on. Like I said, all these recordings are available. We also spoke about the fundraising side of the business. So how are you going to actually raise funds to start your business? And to be honest with you, that's one of the, looking at from my own personal experience and from discussing with other prospective entrepreneurs, the seed funding side of things is where the most obstacle come from. A lot of people are busting with ideas, but they just don't know how to fund it or where to get the resources to start up that business idea. And that's why we're saying that we're going to be helping you in that journey as well once you decide to start. So we spoke about the different ways you can fund your business. Like I said, all those the recordings are available for you to watch on YouTube and on Facebook. Now, today is the D-Day, the day that every one of us have been waiting for. And this is the panel session, so the Q&A session. I know some people have been, asking their questions and so on and so forth. So this is where you're going to bring your question to light. So just for everybody to know, there are two ways that you can ask a question on the panel session today. The first way is we will actually, and which is the most recommended way if you are on with us today on Zoom, is we want you to use the raise your hand feature. So raise your hand so we'll see your hands up, and then we would allow you to speak and ask your question to the panel. You can also type in your question to either the Q&A box in there at the bottom or at the top of your screen, depending on where it is on your device, or you can put it in the chat box as well. If you're on Facebook Live, we have a dedicated team who's actually looking at our Facebook Live as well. So if you just type your comments, your questions in the comment section, and then I would read it out and ask it for you. So to introduce our panel here today, so the first, our panel, Karen Otto. Karen Otto is a serial entrepreneur. She's also a very, very busy highly ranked professional in her workplace. So she actually started off her business when she went on maternity leave, and it has been amazing. I will leave her to talk more about herself as we go on, as we proceed today. Another person is Kike Oniwindi. Kike Oniwindi is the founder and CEO of the Black Young Professionals Network. She is an amazing, inspiring young lady. I've had the pleasure to meet her once in one of the sessions that she spoke at, and I was very, very inspired by her. And then my very own dear sister, Toby Olujimi. Toby Olujimi is the formidable founder of the W Talk Network. She's an amazing, inspiring, fiery lady. She's been, one of my close confidants and people, and someone that has always encouraged me as well to push for my dreams, and I really, really appreciate her, and that's why she's here today. Then you have the amazing Action Jackson. He's an author, an international speaker, and he's also known as the ambassador for happiness. Action Jackson is someone that has always been an influence in my life, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but I've really been inspired by everything, all the investment he has made, and some of the conversations that we have had is an highly inspiring figure. And last but not least, the awesome Mr. Femi Okutubo, who is the CEO and publisher of Trumpet Media Group. And just as a disclaimer, guys, Trumpet Media Group was actually my first job ever. Mr. Femi Okutubo was the first person to give me, to take a chance on this young boy, that just showed up in the UK. He took a chance on me, and I even rose to the point where I was heading the distribution network for the magazine. So I really appreciate you, sir, and thank you very much for being here today. So like you can see, these are amazing, inspiring entrepreneurs who have a wealth of experience. And I want to really, really encourage every one of you today to take this opportunity to ask as many questions as you can. Sometimes when we have sessions like these, everybody's waiting for the first person to ask, and then before you know it, time runs out. So for example, we say that this is going to end around 8 o'clock, but before you know it, when you ask your question and then they provide their own responses, you then discover that time has actually run out. And before we close today, after the panelist session, we're going to have, after the panel session, I beg your pardon, we're going to have Action Jackson give us a 15-minute motivational talk that, hey, now that you have heard all this, what are you going to do? So he's the man, is the take action man. So well, definitely, I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to close up for the entire webinar series. So without further ado, I'd like to, let me just stop sharing my screen here. Let's go straight to the panel. Okay, how you guys doing?
I'm good. I'm just adjusting myself to make sure I'm very comfortable for this conversation. I need to take notes too.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I know, don't worry, Toby. I'll make sure that, as a matter of priority, that you get the recording so that for your own reference. Okay. Amazing. Okay, so I would like to start. The first question I would like to give you, I know a lot of you sent me your introduction, but I just don't want to go into too deeply. I want you to, I want the audience to hear it from the horse's mouth. So this is the question that I would like every one of you to answer, and we're going to go alphabetically. Hi, Karen, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm fine, thank you. So we're going to go alphabetically. So the first question is, what inspired you to start your business? The second question is, what has been the most challenging aspect of being an entrepreneur? And then the third question is, what excites you the most about entrepreneurship? So again, I'll say the first question is, what inspired you to start up your business, to start up as an entrepreneur? Second question, what has been the most challenging, your most challenging experience as an entrepreneur? And the third question is, what excites you the most about entrepreneurship? So we're going to go alphabetically. So Action Jackson, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight. I'm so happy that this is actually happening. I think the future of any country is entrepreneurship, and I think this is the way forward. And for me, I took that leap about 21 years ago as an entrepreneur, and I haven't looked back since. I think it's the best decision I made. My mom said, "Oh, go and get a 9-to-5, a secure job." And I think she was trying to train me based on what she knew, but little did she know that's 20 years later, the same money that I made, from the business was going to be buying her Christmas presents. So she's still happy. So what inspired me in terms of, entrepreneurship is literally this whole idea behind creativity. And I heard Les Brown saying, find something you love doing and get someone to pay you for it. I'm of the belief that whatever you do on a day-to-day, whatever you do over 2 or 3 hours should be fun. If it's not fun, then it's draining your spirit. So for me, I wanted to do something that didn't just pay me, but it was fun for me. It was exciting. It was different. Everybody else can do the 9-to-5. So I was looking for fun. I was looking for fulfillment, then looking for finance. So fun and fulfillment is so key. Second question, very critically, is what are the challenges? I think the greatest challenge was dealing with my ego. Because in life, you're going to have your ego. Your ego is going to say you're not good enough. Your ego is going to say you're the best. Your ego is going to say you can't make it. So you have to be very wary of the flesh, as it were, that gets in the way of the journey. So it's battling that. I think that was the greatest battle, was the ego, honestly, because I think there are many decisions I've made in business that the ego has made rather than me. And business is not about you. It's not about me. It's about the need of the client. And I always say, if you please take note, you must lead with need. You must lead with need. If you think about the need of the people, your business will always be thriving. It was Jeff Bezos that said, if you're going to start any business, start a business that's in an industry that meets the needs of people at a great level. and you're going to make great money. And that's why I will never be out of business, because I'm in the business of motivating human beings. So long as they're human beings, I'm going to be needed on the earth. And then finally, what excites me is problems. I love problem solving. I love the secret to living is giving. And when you solve problems, you bring solution, you bring happiness. When you bring happiness, you release wealth. So problem solving is what really I didn't realize that I was such a great problem solver. Put a business in front of me and within seconds, I can find the solution to it. And then I believe that's the gift that the Holy Spirit has been able to give to me, to creatively solving problems. So that's my inspiration, challenge, and excitement.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Action Jackson. So Karen, over to you.
Oh, for me. So what drove me to start my business? So I started, it feels like a long time ago, but still as if it was yesterday. That was pretty much, I would say, 7 years ago.
Wow.
I think, I don't know, for those who have heard of me, I work in the food industry, and it really is I think you start by kind of understanding that there is a gap in the market. It usually starts with you. You understand that, I found myself going to fancy restaurants once, and at the time before the kids started to arrive, we all know how your expendables start to kind of shrink afterward. But at the time, I was going to fancy restaurants and realizing that the emphasis was often put on the look and less on the actual flavor. And I started to be a little bit pissed, for lack of better words, and thinking that it wasn't fair to charge people that much for very little. So for me, I realized that what I wanted wasn't necessarily what I that was there to explore. So I started with kind of going back to the basics. So it was that eagerness to try and get finding my own space, understanding that there would be people like me, whether we call that a niche or whatever, that would probably also be looking. So it really start with you. You feel like there is a gap in the market, and you start questioning yourself as to, are you the only one perceiving this? So let's give it a try. And because I'm someone quite driven, and I'm very quick to kind of turn an idea into a plan and trying to deliver, toward that, to see, I don't just sit and try to process it in my mind. So it's all about test your idea and see if you need to pivot, if there is a gap or not, etc. So that's how I really started. Then I think in terms of what has been difficult, I think a number of things. I'm someone who, I don't feel the need to work with a partner in the business to kind of make it, thrive. Obviously, together there is always a synergy when you work with someone else, and there are plus and downside. But as an entrepreneur, it's to understand that every single mistake you make costs you. It costs you money. So initially, you don't necessarily understand that, especially if you've been in kind of you've been employee of someone. You don't realize how much a mistake can actually cost you. And as an entrepreneur, you get to learn this the hard way. Every single step, if it's not the right step, it would cost you money, and it's not someone else's money, but your money. So I have to learn that the hard way. I also have to learn that not necessarily always having someone to bounce back ideas with. So it's a little bit of lonely space. Some people love to be in that space, but it can be if you're not used to that. And also really kind of hard learning for everyone to have, which I also did. It's in understanding that you need to really believe on your ideas, because there will be time when you try to convince other people, and if you're not strong enough in your mind as to what you're trying to achieve and how you want to achieve that, there will be time when people won't necessarily believe on you, And you need to believe on yourself. You need to believe that your idea has a way, forward, but also be quite critical, So that was the difficult part, and thinking, when you come with that brilliant idea and you think, this is it. I mean, there is no way I'm not going to make money out of it. But then you need to kind of have that understanding of the concept of pivoting, because once you have your idea out there, you have come across some challenges. It's about understanding who you're actually trying to serve at this point. It's no longer you. The concept started with you, but how you deliver that, it's no longer about you. So you need to learn to hear, understand, and comprehend how you can turn it into pivoting and changing those ideas. Some people don't want to do that. They stick with that. So that was, the difficult part. When you build your business, you have the idea. It's understanding at some point that you may have to, shift things. And the third one was, what excites me, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's to create, kind of going through the process of really understanding from a nothing to see that not only you have created something that is actually worth something else, but also regarded as a valuable product. But it's the process of kind of going toward, through that journey. I think that's the excitement. Also your ethos, when you believe in something and you put it in a certain way and you hear someone else embracing your ethos, that's when you're like, hang on a second, are you actually telling, kind of using my words? You're eating my product and you really enjoy it. It's like when you give birth to a child, it's that process. It's not so much, not just the fact that you're having the baby, it's the whole process of going through the challenges, the ups and downs, and then at the end you have such a beautiful product, beautiful, baby that you can call a product, you can call a baby that make you extremely proud of. Obviously, the money, hopefully at the end of it, it's also the cherry on top. But the process, it's for me, it's the most exciting part.
Awesome, that's amazing. So, Mr. Femi Okutubo?
Well, to try and sum it up, I would say that one thing that really pushed me or made me start a business is is my passion. Passion for writing, because obviously I'm in the media industry, and right from a very, very young age, I'd always been interested in writing. And then what happened was that through Polytechnic and university days, I was involved in a number of campus publications. One that was started by a friend, and then I also started a campus. In fact, I started about 2 or 3 different campus publications in 2 different universities. And one of my objectives at the time was to actually start a national campus newspaper back in Nigeria, which one was only able to achieve partially. So when I arrived in the United Kingdom, the whole idea was to carry on that vision. So while I was a student at Birkbeck College, University of London, I was looking to actually try and start a national campus publication in the United Kingdom. But what I then found was that there was a much higher need in the sense that there was a lot of negative publicity about who we are as Africans. And I felt, as they usually say, that if you don't blow your own trumpets, nobody else will blow it for you. And that's how, in a nutshell, the trumpet started and how the journey of entrepreneurship began. Most challenging experience. I can assure you that in the course of 25 years, there have been so many challenges, and it's extremely difficult to actually highlight a particular one as being the most challenging because they come in varying degrees, the different factors. But if I was going to try and sum everything up, perhaps I would say that of all the resources that one could potentially have, one of the most challenging would be human resources. Because again, when you're running your business, depending on the type of business that you're doing, in fact, definitely you need humans. You need human as part of that process, whether as your own staff or whether as people that you're supplying to. And I think humans by nature are probably the most challenging resource to try and manage. So I would say that a lot of the challenges that we've had would revolve around humans. What excites me most, I think, it's the sense of fulfillment. Especially if I was to look at the newspaper as an example, and with due respect to, to women, I sometimes liken production of the publication or of the media to like going through a journey of pregnancy, in the sense that there's a lot of toil, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of sweat, there's a lot of tears that goes into that process. But at the end of it all, the joy of having a baby in your hands brings the utmost joy. So in terms of what excites me, the joy of being able to make an impact, the joy that the product that or service that one is providing is not just impacting one as an individual, but is impacting individuals, it's impacting society, it is making an influence, it's changing society. I think those that is one thing I would say really, really excites me.
That's really, really amazing. And last but not the least, Toby. You're on mute, Toby.
There we go. We thought we would all be Zoomed professionals by now. Okay, so what was the first question again? I started W Talk, the W Talk network, mainly because I suppose that there's a need. I felt like my faith as a Christian woman wasn't being reflected in the media space, but I also felt like my peers and contemporaries and those around me, they somewhat compartmentalized what they believed on a Sunday to how they lived out their life Monday through to Saturday. They were struggling with how to reconcile their beliefs with how they lived their life. And that my background at the time was law, so I worked in law, in the legal field, in the commercial field, and I also saw, just the eye-watering amounts of money that ran through the media industry and the entertainment industry. And then I also saw this massive demographic of people who, for the most part, were not being spoken to. And I think for me, that's where W Talk was born. Very much like Uncle Femi said, in that respect of, media drives narrative. I say it all the time. Media and narratives drive culture. Really forms and frames what we believe in and why we believe what we believe. Or we see, as we see today with Brexit and Black Lives Matter and whatever is on the news cycle tends to be what's around the dinner table of an evening in a family. Media has the power to intimately go through walls and doors to a family table at dinner. And I just couldn't understand why another aspect that was so intimate to many people that I knew, huge demographic of people, by far not a niche actually, faith wasn't being demonstrated in a way that I felt was reasonable. So that's, I suppose, where W Talk was born. I say it to myself, I say it all the time to my team, and I was looking most recently actually was drinking Coke, which I'm obviously not endorsing anyone to do because Coke is terrible for you, but I was doing it that it was hot, and actually on it says 1886 to say when it was formed, or when Coke as a brand was formed, 1886, and I really felt, at that time, I was really encouraged by that, because it was not actually, it takes sometimes centuries to build a lasting brand. And I think of that of Disney and all of that. So with W Talk, with us, we just started our journey when I had my son on maternity leave full time, really. I started about three and a half years ago. So we're still very much new to it. But the whole aspect is to, one, build a network which represents faith in the mainstream in an honest, real and authentic way, non-preachy way, but also to get more faith-based content in the mainstream and other existing broadcast platforms. And I started that, as I said, because it just wasn't, I didn't feel like it was happening. And that's no disrespect, as I always say on these things, to forerunners like God TV and TBN and all of those things for which we stand on their shoulders in some respects. But W Talk wasn't trying to be a Christian channel. It was trying to have faith stories that are in the mainstream. So there's a slight nuance there. So yeah, that's what the reason I started it and why I continue it. Sometimes I think of my children. I've got a son, I've got a daughter, and I think, well, what's going to teach them when I'm not looking? You know, I hope that W Talk, I more than hope, I'm working hard in building in faith that W Talk will be one of those brands that they can legitimately turn to, like they would any other of brands that are growing today. Challenges, I think, anyone that is building a business knows, I think it's almost part and parcel. I think people that are trying to build a business and go out on their own they relish the challenge. I think somewhere inside they like the catch just like they like the chase. Challenges come. I think one of the things that have been really challenging, I think, is communicating your brand to an audience that may not understand your language, and refusing to be boxed. So if I tell anyone here, I've got a faith-based network, or I'm interested in faith-based TV, automatically they may think of me writing a script about Jesus and the 12 disciples. And that really is just boxed automatically. Or again, you might think of just sermons and pastors all coming onto the network. And so I think what has been interesting, but also a challenge, but actually very good for us, is to redefine the message, make the message sharp, be able to say the message in what they are supposed to would say, the elevator pitch, making sure that we know exactly who we are and that we're creating brand defining content. So not only do we know who we are, but if someone comes across any of our content, they can say, oh, that's a sort of that's got a W2-esque vibe. And I think that has been an initial challenge. I think another challenge for us has been just, I suppose, managing the expectation of the product based on what you envisioned. And I think, like I said, all of us, many of us are visionaries and dreamers, and we've got great ideas, but we are also running a startup. So for example, W Talk has its own app, free to download. It's my first plug of the evening. But what actually is on the App Store isn't what I envisioned straight up. I envisioned maybe a Netflix with some frills and a Disney Plus. But what we had to do was work with what we had and make it to a presentable standard, which still communicates what we hope to achieve. And I think that, I would say, if not careful, that could have been a challenge that tripped us up, because I wouldn't have an app on the App Store if I was waiting for it to be like Disney Plus, and I wouldn't have an app in the App Store if I was waiting for it to be like Netflix. Eric Ries, a brilliant book, probably first book that I would recommend for the evening, which is called Lean Startup Model. And the Lean Startup actually talks about providing a minimum viable product and just adding to it over time. And I think that really helped us overcome that challenge. What excites me, many things excite me in regards to W Talk, but and I'm sure lots of people on this call can remember the show that changed their world, or a film, or a documentary, or a podcast in recent times. I love the Gilmore Girls. Growing up, I absolutely loved Dirty Dancing. I still sit down and watched 13th with Ava DuVernay. Kardashians is a guilty pleasure. I can reel off content that, if you like, has both entertained, informed, whatever, maybe escape, whatever it may be. And what excites me is that having that sort of content, which I believe is faith-based, so has hope and overcoming and belief, having that content in the mainstream platform, not only on the platform that we will build, but on platforms, national broadcast platforms, and then having little girls in there, or little women, little girls, even men, grown men, because we know you watch us too, in the bedroom or sitting at home, and they're watching something and they've left feeling better, They've left challenged, they've left inspired, they've left ready to be like, actually, today was bad, but I'll move on to tomorrow. I picture those people in my mind when we're creating content, and that excites me.
Amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Toby. Thank you for sharing that insight with us. And thank you, everyone. So I think some of the things that you've all shared are quite are very, very similar. Some of the inspiration that made you start up your business. Your passion. Action Jackson, your passion to inspire people. To keep them. To encourage them as well. I think your challenge is actually quite unique in terms of from what everybody else has mentioned, but it's not unique to everyone in the sense that sometimes when you and sometimes it's actually good that you actually mentioned it, because it's one of the invisible challenges that we see. Sometimes we think that challenges are things that are external to us. Does that make sense? Oh, the struggle to sell my idea, which is a very, very potent challenge, like Karen mentioned and Toby also mentioned as well. But also your ego, some of the internal challenges that you need to deal with as a person that can easily trip you off as an entrepreneur and actually make your business. And the funny thing is that sometimes what makes your business fail before you start is actually those internal challenges that you have left unchecked. So I think it's very, very key that you mentioned that, and we need to work on that as well. Everyone on the call, whether you're going to start up a business or not, if you don't build the right character, you're most likely not going to be successful or even maintain the success, even if you by chance become successful. And I love what Mr. Femi Okutubo said, that this is a passion that he has had right from school days. Mr. Okutubo is the first, I'll say arguably the first, and even still the biggest black newspaper in the UK. I believe that's correct, sir. So definitely leading in the media space, and I've been privileged to come in midway to actually see the newspaper and the media group grow as well. And some of the things that Toby has said, because sometimes we look at the future and we look at what we have now and we get discouraged. So I think that goes to that then speaks to the next question. And anyone feel free to go first. Any one of you panelists, feel free to go first. How have you dealt with discouragement in your journey as an entrepreneur? How have you dealt with discouragement?
If I was going to say anything about discouragement, I think in the first instance, it is important that one believes in oneself. I think it was Henry Ford who said that, if you believe in certain things about yourself, then you're right. And otherwise, something along those lines in a nutshell. What I'm saying is that you as you have to believe in yourself, and that's the starting point. And in believing in you, you also need to believe in your business or in your product or in your service or whatever it is you do. Now, that is not to say that one must not take feedback into consideration. Because, for example, if there's anything that has really kept us going over the last 25 years, it is the fact that we do listen a lot. We do listen a lot. We do quite a bit of research, in fact, relatively speaking, as far as our sector is concerned. And when I say that, looking even beyond our own, because we're a niche publication, and sometimes one could be complacent, but sometimes, one has to read about even publications that are not even in English, let alone African publications, try and learn from their experiences and so on and so forth, and look at things that are relevant to what one is trying to do, or look at things that others have done and how one can improve those things. So I think in terms of, if you're confident about what you're doing, if you've done your homework very well, if you've researched very well, and you've committed everything into the hands of God, I believe strongly that you can always deal with discouragement. And discouragement sometimes, to me, is not a bad thing. Sometimes it's an opportunity for a reality check to, go back and check what you're doing. Am I really on the right track? okay, this person may not necessarily see what I see. So I think discouraging sometimes, or discouragement sometimes, is actually something that would ginger you on to even try and make sure that you're able to achieve, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So I think that's the way I've tried to deal with discouragement. And at the same time, discouragement is not even a bad thing entirely.
Amazing. So just to ride on you before any of the panelists speak again, so how have you been able? Because I know that you mentioned about feedback and taking feedback. How have you been able to decipher between people who are just providing you feedback to discourage you and people who are actually providing you constructive feedback to help you to move your business forward? Because sometimes when you're doing something, everybody has an opinion on what you're doing. So how do you how do you decipher? How do you say that, okay, this is actually potent and I'm going to use it. This is credible, this is constructive, and this is, and how do you do that without coming across as prideful?
Well, I think it's about keeping an open mind. Keeping an open mind in the sense that you need to be able to accept, or you need to be able to listen to what people are saying in good faith. Even if it is, even if they're trying to be spiteful, which is rarely the case. I think one should just see that as part of, the challenges that one needs to deal with. But most of the time, if people are saying certain things, they're probably saying it because they've gone through one experience or the other, or maybe they've seen certain things done in certain ways, and they've seen certain results come out from, in a certain, come out a certain way, or maybe they don't even know, So at the end of the day, one has to take all those things in, all those comments or feedback in good faith, match it with what you're trying to do research where there's the need to do further research, and just go ahead with it. Sometimes you have to go with your gut feeling as well. And I think you said it right at the beginning of this program as well, that sometimes it is not enough to just listen to what people are saying or watch so many videos and so on. Taking action is extremely important at many a times, and one should not be afraid to make mistakes. I think it's better to make mistakes than not to take any action at all, because sometimes mistakes, or in fact, most of the time, mistakes are all part of the learning process. We've made mistakes in the course of running the business. But at the end of the day, we've been able to learn from those mistakes. And sometimes those things may not even be mistakes. You could be on a perfect track, perfect path, but there are external factors that arise which you have no control over. Let's look at 2020 as a typical example. Anyone who started a business in 2020, or even before 2020, if anybody's running a business today and you're not taking a second look at what your business means or how relevant your business is post-COVID-19, then there's a problem. So everybody, most people have to go back to the drawing board. There are businesses that have made, in fact, they have really blossomed, so well during this crisis. There are some that have, that things have gone on the downward, trend, but they've now been able to reinvent themselves. And in fact, I was very surprised. I was reading of a company a couple of days ago. I can't remember what they were doing. Something totally different. And now these guys do face masks. And they do it on a huge scale. And I'm not even talking about maybe, one of my brothers or sisters within the community. I'm talking like a mainstream company. So in reality, I think it's all about going back to the drawing board and making sure that even whatever comments is coming in, you're adapting to it, weighing it, taking the good out of it, and even any negatives, see it as a challenge to be able to move to the next level.
Amazing. I think you've mentioned something very insightful there about COVID-19, but I'm not going to bite the bait just yet. I'm going to leave that to you. We're going to come back to that definitely and give a very good focus to it. So, Toby, how have you been able to handle discouragement and also like some of the things that Mr. Okutubo was talking about handling feedback? How have you been able to manage that? You're mute. Yeah.
Well, I think that feedback is really important. I think any business, I think for us, it's really important for us to have an open dialogue to the community and the audience we serve. You can think you've got an idea that is popping and you put it out there and actually they like, I was thinking something else. It's great to get feedback. There's people that have done it before me. I'm always eager when I meet people to say, oh, please, can we have a coffee, or can we follow up? Or, sometimes with work, just, working, you forget. But mental note in my head, I think, some of the biggest resource, I think, that we have, the most finances, I suppose, that we have, not even just money, just wealth, comes from conversations. It comes from those sort of like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. This is where we are on the trajectory. What do you think? So actually, I crave feedback. I relish it. I crave it. I can't see my own back. I'm not the first person to build a media network. Like, and I think sometimes you have to sort of because sometimes you think you're the first. No one's doing this. No one's ever going to do this. I'm not the first, and I'm not going to be the last. There are some tenets to this thing, and there's massively successful people who are doing it and doing it well, and I would be a complete idiot to not speak to those people. So for me, I relish the feedback. If the feedback comes and it's not something that I would like, then I go back to the drawing board. I look at it. I think it was Karen that spoke about pivoting. I think in the last 3.5 years, we've pivoted and pivoted and pivoted and pivoted. Again, I can speak of a recent example. I think you even asked me today, Tolu. You said, "Why are we going to YouTube when we have already have a network? We already have an app. Why would we go to YouTube?" Well, that came from feedback. That came from a conversation with a mentor who is a media exec, probably old enough to be my father, and he said that he thinks that our digital footprint just needs strengthening a little bit. And he spoke about massive networks like Disney and Netflix all having YouTube channels. So I sat back and I really didn't want to go into YouTube. It's a crowded market. I didn't want to do it, but I sat back and spoke to the team. I sought advice from, people that are colleagues and contemporaries. And now we're moving into that space to see how the W Talk brand can expand into that space. So that's just a perfect example of when I first heard it. I was like, oh, we've got an app, we've got this. Why do you want YouTube again? Like, I don't understand. I couldn't understand it initially, but from that, I was able to just say, well, actually, there's something there. And I think we owe it to what we're building for our first response, not to be, are they being vindictive or are they being spiteful? I don't think that's a helpful first response. I think we owe it to what we're building for our first response to be, is there something there? Is there something to this? Is there some merit to this? In terms of discouragement as well, for me, I could have called it, for me, I'm building something completely bigger than myself. I'm not going to use W Talk or anything else like that to validate my identity. I think it's a really dangerous place and a dangerous lane to be in when an entrepreneur or a business owner or any sort of creative, a producer, a filmmaker, whatever it may be, an author, that's where they get their source of validation from in terms of who they are. I think it's a dangerous place, because I think if that thing crumbles, then your self-esteem, your identity, which you've attached to almost your validation to your being, has been attached to that idea or to that business. So my identity is not attached to W Talk. My identity isn't attached to its success, and my identity isn't attached to the mistakes we may make along the way. I'm Toby Olujimi. That's one of the things that I do. If I present somewhere, if I speak somewhere in front of people, my identity is not attached to how many people I'm speaking to. My identity is not attached to how many downloads or ratings or all these things that become very important in the media world. My identity is not attached to those things. And very early on, and not only very early on, probably a few hours ago, I had to remind myself of that. It's something that I continually remind myself of. and it's particularly in the world of followers and subscribers and rating, and you know, as I said, ratings and how much money you've turned over and how much money you haven't turned over, and all of this, it's very easy to attach who you are to what you do. But as easy as it is, it's very, very dangerous, because the trajectory is always up and down. Life is never, never straight. So you don't want your emotions and your whole well-being, and that's why mental health is a very important thing. It shouldn't be attached to it. So for me, if I receive discouragement, I myself, I have to say, well, this is not a discouragement to me and my being. This is me to an invitation for me to critically look at what I'm building. So for me, that is something that's been helpful.
Amazing, amazing. And before I ask Karen to go, please guys, start sending in your questions. Like I said, don't wait to the last minute where we say that the time is up and you can't ask your questions anymore. Please start sending your questions now. So Karen, I know you mentioned also about managing the cost of mistakes. So how have you been able to, in line with what Mr. Femi has mentioned and what Toby has also mentioned, how have you been able to manage your cost of mistakes as well?
My cost of mistakes. So by the way, I don't know what I done with the video, but you can barely see me.
That's fine.
So the cost of mistake, actually, before I answer this, I apologize. This is literally live streaming, home, working, and my kids are screaming in the background. So
that's fine.
So starting with the initial questions, and this is something I started answering actually when during the introduction, a few things about you know, the downside that may come along with your own business is, one, you need to believe in yourself, because there would be ups and downs. If you don't believe on yourself and do not especially believe on the product you're putting, you know, for people to criticize somehow, it would cost you something. Your self-esteem, it would cause you to stop right where you started, and not only that, in addition to that, there is also an aspect of separating yourself to the product you're building. You know, any idea you put in place, or at least in vast majority, it usually comes from you as a self-centered. You know, you start by realizing that there is something that is needed. And you're often the first person who need that, or who realize, you know, that you could be using such product. But soon enough, you need to find the strength and the, I would say, the intellectual emotion, if to kind of separate those two. So as Toby was referring to initially, you know, it's a product you're putting out there. It's not you're putting out there. So you have to separate those two, and really look at it from more from a kind of pure intellectual way, and try and find ways to you know, to overcome that. You know, she's also mentioned you know, pivoting as I did, but also, you know, really keep looking at way to build on top of. Your second question was with regard to how to overcome the cost, or the mistake caused by, or the cost caused by the mistake you're doing. So there is such thing as experience, right? What is the experience at the end of the day? Experience are, or at least to me, these are, it's a kind of blind definition of your learnings, and you can't learn, or you don't learn as much if you don't make mistakes. You learn more from mistakes than things that you don't straight, you know, because you don't actually realize what pushed you to make it so great. What is that you are, you know, you have experience that didn't cost you that much. So from those costs, you learn from it and you become more savvy, you know, you become more aware of elements you need to look into. That's where experience really come from, and so yeah, so there is a cost to that experience, right? Once the key things there is to learn from it. How did I overcome? For me personally, I find myself developing new skills. Sometimes you don't necessarily have the necessary funds, to go ahead and just spread money. And in fact, for me, it was quite helpful not to have them and to put my own perspective and my own development of competences. And this way I was, and that's actually something I applied on everything I do, is that you learn by doing it yourself. Because if you know what you do, you know how to do it, you would have fewer people telling you all sorts of craps, really, to justify the grade, justify the need to spend that money. So while I have built experience, making my own mistakes, I feel that because I've spent a lot more time doing things myself and learning how to do it before I actually delegate to someone else, I knew exactly where I was and every step of the way. And there is also an element of mistake. You need to make certain type of mistakes. These are, we talk about pivoting. That's what it is. You start with an idea, you realize that it doesn't necessarily work and it needs to be reworked in a certain way. So then allow yourself to challenge yourself and change it. But the change means that you have started something that it's no longer valuable to be pursued. And that has a cost. It can be a cost of time. It can be a cost of, energy. It can be a cost, any type of cost. But every single thing there has a cost. But you can't learn unless you have gone through it. But the learning, when you start pivoting, it's a way for you to understand that what you thought was is no longer. It could also be, it could be that, it wasn't necessarily a good idea initially. That's a massive learning. You're not going to go back to that. It could be that what it was meant to be of a short period of time. And not necessarily pursued, all the way, but it served its purpose during the time. That's another, massive learning. And these are things that you can't always buy. Or if you decide to buy it, it would cost you, a lot more. So I suppose what I mentioned before about, every single step you're doing or mistake you're doing costs you, it's something to be aware of, not necessarily to be afraid of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a perfect sense, Karen. Makes perfect sense. So I think from what I'm gathering from what you said is that mistake is not actually, or the cost of mistake is not actually a loss, but a form of investment. Is that correct? Because
Yes.
you're actually gaining experience and a deeper insight and knowledge of how to make your business more successful.
Absolutely. And I think it's you perfectly resume that. In many cases, by lack of and funds, we sometimes find ourselves just spending money that shouldn't, because we feel that we don't have time to actually really drill down and understand and learn. If you put yourself some kind of timeline to achieve certain milestone, you won't necessarily have that time, right, to do that. Or if you have an abundance of funds, you may end up spending those funds, not necessarily wisely. So sometimes the lack of something you have it teaches you to go back and, to square one and really try and understand. There are things that I'm going to take some kind of practical example. Something I spent money on was, for instance, in building my website for my business, and depending on what you're going for, what kind of platform you want to use, that costs you money, and that makes you so dependent on the person who actually built that for you. But if you have taken time to really understand what it takes and understand how you can actually get there, You may not always want to do that, but by learning the process, the next time I can assure you, you're going to go for the next best person to build that for you. You will know exactly what you're asking for. You will know the value of what you're asking for. So the spending would be much less. So that learning, you either hire someone who has who has gone through that experience and learned from it and can kind of advise you, or you do it yourself. But either way, you have to be aware that every single move would cost you something, but it's part of the process. That is what building your business from scratch is.
Amazing. Action Jackson, how have you been able to manage as the ambassador of happiness? How have you been able to manage discouragement? Leverage your mistakes and also take feedback.
I think for me, it's the best time. It's the one time I come alive. Like I said, I love solving problems, so when something goes wrong, it's a time for me to shine. It's a time for me to wake up and just attack the issue head on. I've been in scenarios where I'm ready to give a 1 hour talk and the technical thing's not working, the PowerPoint's not working, and, let's dive right in. Or a presenter that's supposed to go to Manchester is not there yet. So I think one of the things we should never be scared of is challenges or discouragement, because if you pray for wisdom, you'll be put in a very confusing scenario. And umbrella is great when there's rain. So for me in business, I've made stupid mistakes, spent lots of money on certain situations. And something, as Karen was talking, that came to me is like, I'm wise because I've been foolish. So if you see someone with great wisdom, it's because they've gone through great folly. They've gone through so many things that they've made mistakes on. So really and truly for me, in terms of the mistakes along the way and the feedback, like rightly, the sun shines. And when the sun shines, the sun doesn't send you a feedback form as to how did I do today? The sun just does its job. And for me, I love feedback, and sometimes I don't like feedback because sometimes it can affect how you perform. I always like my feedback to be from the person that gave me the gift and sent me on the mission. And if I concentrate on the fact that God has given me a gift to go and bless people with, that becomes my drive. With that said, sometimes it is good to listen to the marketplace to say, we don't want this anymore, we want this now. And that feedback is what you use to redesign the product or the idea that you're putting out there. Like Toby said earlier on, my identity is not in my business. So if someone criticizes the business, it shouldn't affect you because your identity is not in it. And the second you separate yourself from the business idea, the more powerful you feel. So for me, I welcome feedback because it's the only way. Every feedback you get, use it as a stepping stone to your greatness.
Amazing.
That's the way you've got to use it. Use it as a stepping stone.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so Daniel has asked a question here. He's saying, what has been, and this is to all the speakers, what has been your greatest achievement since you started your business, and why would you say that this is your greatest achievement?
I'll jump on that. I think the greatest achievement for me was building a team. When I started my business, my ego, it's my name, Action Jackson. My name is on the top of the building. Yay, I'm the man. Not realizing by saying I'm the man, I was actually hindering my wealth and the amount of money I could make. Because by myself, I can only make so much. But by hiring a team, there is no end to how much I can earn. Because when even Jesus Christ, if Jesus Christ had 12 disciples, how much more me? I need to have the team. So I think for me, the greatest achievement is, I would say to everyone that's got a business, the Bible says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and have dominion. You can't have dominion by yourself. Jeff Bezos is not packing boxes and sending it out there. So I would say, no matter, even you're in the mustard seed stage of your business, start thinking about what it would look like when you form a team around that idea, because at some point in time, that idea will multiply. And when it multiplies, you can reach more people with what you have. So I believe in building a team that allows me to reach more and impact more. Team building, I would say, I wish someone came to me 20 years ago and slapped me upside my head to say, hey, start building a team right now because you're going to go big. You're going to be big. So yeah, even if it's volunteers for now, because your leadership starts to be challenged, you start to get used to learning to working with people as well. So team building.
Amazing, amazing.
I
Who would like to go next?
can
Karen?
jump in.
Sure.
So I suppose I'm probably going to mention two aspects. The first one was because my background is in, people management, in IT, software business, and I was challenging myself to jump into the food industry. So little to say that the network wasn't there, so I had to build everything from scratch. And the way I went from being a nobody to someone that is actually recognized by the peers on, within that space, was by trying to build on that credibility. And the credibility, it's one thing to cook for your family between closed door and to put that food out there for people to criticize and actually see themselves buying your food, whatever that is. In this specific case, I'm talking about food, but it could be any product. So I had to build that credibility. I had to go back and do it myself. And I think I've done it so well that in the space of, let's say, 3 to 4 years, I managed to develop 3 brands without realizing that I was actually developing a 4th one, and the 4th one was me. So I became the spokesperson of my own business. So because I wasn't aware of it, I always tried to detach myself from the product. I was like, no, what I'm actually selling is this. And people were like, no, the reason why we're buying this is because you are the common denominator here. So I started developing this. So all this to say, you have to believe, and the way I came across and I was portrayed, all that kind of, pushed me to develop what I call today, the 4th brand, and they all, go together. I suppose the other achievement is probably a little bit along the line of Jackson. Hang on, is it Action your first name then?
Well, it's yeah, you could call me Action Jacks, but it's Oluwasegun Temitope Jackson.
Getting more complicated.
If you can survive with that, then we're cool.
Fair enough. So along the line of what Jackson was saying, is to realize where it's just silly to be wasting time. And I'm going to explain something. Because I was so into, especially when you kind of, build that momentum and you believe on the product and you want to control literally every single step of the process, you can, find yourself really stuck into that space. And so the more you do yourself, the less you think strategically, right? So you have to think about that, as things start moving up and you start kind of building that momentum, that you can't be everywhere, and that's the reason why for any business, you always have people actually helping that business move forward, So what I had to learn is to stop burning myself out. So I done a lot of things myself, so that was a positive thing, but you have to understand when to shift it. And then also realizing that from an achievement perspective, that I could use the help of other people that are specialized in certain areas. And the example I have in mind is one of the products that I have developed are marinades using West African spices. And I've done literally from developing the product, testing the product, developing the brand, the design, the kind of, the storyline, because you have to explain what it is, the inspiration about that, the ethos about that. So I was literally everywhere, and I was making the sauces myself. I was going to the market to buy the product, and coming back, like really early in the morning to make them myself, bottle them, put the stickers and sell them. At the end of the day, when you do that, you just have so many hours in the day to achieve all that. So it starts stopping you from thinking bigger, because the more you do that, the more you're gonna, your vision start to be a little bit impaired. You have all that you want people to know, but you don't have time, you don't have space, you don't have the brain space to even process things. So you start understanding where your value or where your time is worth spending, whether it's in developing the business. So you have to start letting things, you know how to make it, you understand, the whole thing. So that's learning, that growth was for me, a big achievement, because I started from doing the sauces on my, saucepan to scaling up a little bit, to produce a little bit more, and then finding the space and the brain set to say, okay, you know what? I now need to look at it from a perspective of how do I go to market? How do I free up that time, that space, so that I can actually work on, the things. Who can I trust? This is a learning, this is experience. And regardless of what you want to say, there isn't a book that tells you how to put your product to market. They may specify, certain aspect, but you don't have that. And you have to learn. So for me, it's an achievement from, doing something in a saucepan and thinking, I could sell it, to the point where not only you're selling it, but you have a brand that is recognized, believed into, the ethos that resonate to people, and seeing your product being mentioned, and you have, other people actually using it and explaining, what it is. You're like, wow, that's something, regardless whether you're making money at the moment or not, but this is an achievement.
Amazing. Toby, do you want to quickly jump on that?
Yeah. I've been thinking, to be honest, if I'm really honest, I don't know if I have any one single achievement, as in, this moment. I think one thing I personally learned and I find helpful is I just try to celebrate the small wins. I think it can get so difficult. And I also think my personality, I don't know if anyone resonates to this, is I also want to catch the next big fish. And I think that also speaks to something that can be quite unhealthy. If you're constantly, okay, that's great, but you can't even, I remember we launched the app, and, we spent nearly 2 years developing the app, argue that should be the standard answer, right? But I remember, like, on the way home, just saying to, my husband, okay, this is the show idea. And he's like, we haven't even got home yet. Like, you need to celebrate this moment and celebrate this win. So I think, I celebrate my contacts that I think have grown exponentially, which has been massively helpful to getting into some rooms. And I think that comes from more my virtue of tenacity, or bugging, or stalking, or whatever you want to call it. I call it being tenacious, and just I celebrate that as a win, more of a virtue of actually my persistence, more the virtues that's being developed in me on this journey, as opposed to singular events. So yeah, that's, I suppose, my main answer to that.
That's really amazing. I mean, some of the general theme from what you have all said here, it seems like you've mentioned that some of the what you would call to be your greatest achievements are actually intangibles. So I've not really heard anybody say that, oh yes, I made 100 billion or whatever. But it seems like the focus there is in terms of building yourself as a person, and growing as a person, and learning as a person, and identifying ideas, opportunities to actually grow your business, like what Action Jackson said about the team building, Karen said about the personal development side of things, and yourself about learning to actually celebrate the small wins. So Here is the elephant in the room. Should a business exist to make money?
Sir, I'm laughing.
Solely to make money.
Yeah, solely to make money. Should you exist?
Go on, Jay.
Should that be your? If it's not going to make money, should you not do it?
If it's not making money, isn't it a hobby?
Yeah, first of all, because even charity makes money. Let's start there. So I would say there is a misconception, and this is a thing. One of the big challenge as an entrepreneur when you start, you always have a reference all these winners, right? You like Microsoft, Pinterest, Facebook, and so on and so forth, and that's the thing. You know, you focus and you look at those who come across as being successful. And I'm gonna give as well my own example. And what we tend to forget is that these people, they have probably gone bankrupt 5 times or X number of times. They have reworked on the product so many times you wouldn't even remember. They have launched maybe 5 or 6 other products before that didn't work at all. They have been, you know, so and so. So the success you see today, because that's usually how the shortcut when you're kind of newbie in the entrepreneurial world, is to think that you have this brilliant idea, you can see those people successful. Clearly you're going to be earning millions or hundreds or whatever your target is in no time. What you fail to actually look at is the road to success these people you take as, you know, prime example have taken. And there is also a difference between the perception of success and what is actually success. And it's very different to one and, you know, to the next person. So you have to define yourself what is success. You know, you can have a money and burn it in, you know, no time. What are you building? Are you building something that is there to last? Or are you building, because, you know, there are some other business models that are very quick to make money. You can, you know, I don't know, you find the right product. But when you start thinking of what you're actually trying to, what is the ethos, it takes time. As some would say, Rome wasn't built, you know, overnight. So remember that, right? That's the thing. And also myself, you know, taking me as an example, I never feel that I'm successful enough, because as an entrepreneur, you always look for the next thing. You actually forget to see, you know, from time to time, you should just kind of step back and look at what you have achieved so far. But you know, the way we, as human being, I would say, we would always look forward. So you forget that you actually been, and people remind me that I'm successful. And I'm like, really? I mean, my bank account doesn't tell me that. But you realize that you actually project a certain image of yourself. And social media, it's so bad because it gives sometimes the false image of, you know, whatever you want to put there. It's the best version of yourself, right? Or best version of your company. It's all about that image. But I think you have to define for yourself what success means. And that's what's going to drive you through, because money is one thing, but money goes in and out. If you're, you know, as a true, you know, entrepreneur, whenever you have a little bit, you're actually possibly already spend that money before you got it in your bank account, because you're trying to develop the next thing, the next future, the next. So
Amazing. Okay, so Mr. Femi, the question is, should businesses, if your business is not making money, if your business idea is not going to make you money, should you do it? What do you think?
Okay, yeah, let me start by apologizing. Somehow, you know, I lost the connection there,
No
and I
worries
couldn't
at all.
reconnect. If your business is not making money, should you really do it? Wow. Again, it depends on the reason why you've gone into business. Let's not forget that there could be certain businesses that have actually been set up for social entrepreneurial purposes. Or if, for example, a business, and I use that word business loosely, perhaps I'll say organization. If the organization is not necessarily for the purposes of making money in terms of physical cash, but perhaps it's for the purposes of creating some form of impact, and perhaps it's part of a larger group of businesses. So perhaps you're using that particular business to achieve a purpose, but you're also using it as a lost leader, then that could be a reason why one would still continue in business. So again, I think there's no yes or no answer on that, especially if you're looking at things from the wider perspective. So it really depends on the circumstances as to why one is running the business. But I assume that maybe the intention of that question is simply to ask that, well, if you're running a business that is meant to be for profit and you're not making money, should you continue? Well, if that is the case, I would probably say that, again, one has to do a proper analysis. Why is the business not making money? Why does it appear that the business is failing? Are there things that you can do to remedy the situation? The business not making money now, is it temporary or is it something that is likely to continue indefinitely? So those are factors that one needs to take into consideration before being able to really answer that question judiciously.
Amazing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so Toby, you're going to jump on this. I just wanted to add something to your question that Mr. Yomi Dukoya has asked. You mentioned about separating, and I think it's also in line with should a business make money and so on. And I know that Action Jackson will also jump on this as well. So you mentioned about a separation between your own personal identity and your business brand. So what would you like to be known for? You as a person, what would you like to be best known for? Mr. Yomi Odukoya, have I answered your question in the spirit in which you have asked it? You go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to clarify.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think Toby, jump on it, and then Action Jackson should jump on it also.
It's such a huge question. Do you mean like in terms of legacy or not legacy?
Yeah, legacy.
Legacy.
So someone's talking about Toby Olujimi in 10 years' time. What would you like them to say?
Yeah, it's really hardcore, isn't it? I think someone that communicated faith to a culture that needed faith and hope and love, and built something that communicated faith to a culture that needed it. Ultimately, that is really what I would like to be known for. And how I communicate faith may change and vary. Could be a film, could be a podcast, could be a stage, could be a talk show, whatever it may be. But I believe that I want to be known for communicating faith to a culture that need it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And can I just quickly say something about profitability before Jackson? Because I know Jackson's going to say some really deep legacy thing now. It's going to make me go back and rewrite my whole. I think there's a misconception as well that, a lot of companies are not big. Netflix right now, currently, at least I don't think the last financial quarter, they're not profitable. They're not actually yet profitable. And I think there is something about small businesses and us, a lot of people that are small-minded that take their cash and eat their seed. And a lot of people eat their seed too prematurely. This is, different size businesses, not everyone's trying to be Netflix. Netflix are a global player and they will eventually, I'm sure, be massively. But a lot of their money, they reinvest to make content, and then it grows. They've got a plan. They've got a 10-year plan. They've got a 5-year plan. They've got a 20-year plan. So the reason I say that is because if you open, anyone that's watching this or will watch this, if you open a business today and tomorrow you're not profitable, don't cancel that business because you're not profitable in the first day or the first week or the first year. But have a plan towards profitability. I think that's mainly what I'm trying to say. It's not necessarily that, I'll make that money, or I'll make £10 from it. So that £10 that you've made, you go and buy chicken and chips. That £10, it's best that you look at the £10 you made and think, well, how much of this should go back into the business? How much is a dividend? How much is, what should I do with every bit of capital that I've made? And I think, I'm sure you've had a financial literacy one thing, but I'd come across a lot of businesses, and certainly at my sort of small to medium, and I think that they tend to be like, I'm not making this amount of money right now. But it's like, are you on plan and on course to profitability? But yeah, that's just a side note. As I said, I want to communicate faith to a culture. That's my legacy. Go on, Jackson.
Listen, it's taken me 20 years to craft and to finally arrive at this particular mission statement. And, you know, I think you go left, you go right, you serve yourself, you serve everybody else, and you serve your ego, and then you sit and realize that there's an emptiness. And then you go back. Jesus Christ had a mission statement, and we can still look back and say, wow, this is what it was all about. For me, it's Action Jackson. When it's all said and done, he created a world where young people wake up happy and go to bed fulfilled. And that's it. And the way I do that is to unlock the best of me. So I want to live full and die empty. When I say die empty, everything inside of me has been brought to the surface. And as I'm bringing it to the surface, you're smiling, you're happy. And while you're smiling and happy, you say, oh, what's inside of me? I want my existence to challenge you to unlock your existence. And then when it's all said and done, we're all happy. So that definitely is my legacy, is happiness. That's why I self-styled the UK Ambassador for Happiness, because I traveled to Abu Dhabi and they've got a Minister for Happiness. And I said, hold on, the very thing that's important to the human existence, but they don't have a representative in the UK. So I am the UK Ambassador for Happiness. I've carried it. I've been wearing it. I've been walking on it. And my music video is about it. My next book is about happiness, because I saw saw a gap, but I saw a need, and my whole personality will meet that. And my daughter will carry on the legacy of doing the exact same thing. So I'm training her now to know that you are on this planet to bring happiness. What I don't finish, you will carry on. So that's my deep
That's amazing. That's amazing. I know. I don't know if we're going to have enough time to actually do this particular question justice, because I want to make sure that Action Jackson has enough time to actually pump us up and inspire us. So now that something that Mr. Femi Okutubo alluded to, you know, in his speech earlier, COVID-19. How are you as entrepreneurs responding to COVID-19? You know, I know, especially with Karen and various portfolios that she's juggling as a senior professional, as a mother, also as a serial entrepreneur. Toby juggling as a mother, as a serial entrepreneur as well. Action Jackson, Mr. Femi Okutubo, all of you. How are you responding to COVID-19? I'll excuse Toby from this question. I just want to focus on Mr. Femi, Action Jackson, and Karen.
Unfortunately, I have to bow out as well. But can I just say,
worries.
it's been absolutely fantastic, and I've been taking notes. Taking my notes, so I'll be watching the replay. But thank you so much for having me. And
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, yes, please, thank you. And please, Mr. Femi Okutubo, I suppose, now that I'm seeing you, I remember that I owe you a chat. Please, thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Please, as I say, I'm always trying to make connections. And Jackson, I'll always stalk you. Karen, lovely to meet you. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, take care.
God bless you all.
Bye-bye.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. So how have you responded to, or how are you responding to COVID-19, both as a professional, as a mother, and also especially as an entrepreneur?
It's been a hard a hard call. So let's start with, as a mother, it's been challenging. Because I think what I haven't mentioned is that on top of, the full brand that I'm trying to juggle with, I also have a full-time job. And so having the two kids with me at home, and by all means, I'm not the only one to look after them, but it felt as if in some cases, because it's really full on. It's been challenging, but also, I don't know, COVID, it's a really, really interesting moment we're living, because before COVID, I was literally working 7 days a week, because I had to fulfill a full-time job as well as fulfilling the requirement with my other brands and the role as a mother. So I had very little sleep, and it was extremely difficult, and I think the plus side with COVID was that it forced me to stop and rethink, understand, in full, understand, really rethink about the strategy of, rethink about the balance between work and family. Think as well about, okay, we've been in such a overly consuming environment and population or social, whatever you want to take it. Do we really need that? If I don't spend 5 minutes on my business, would that mean that the business is going to die? Or should I maybe think again on how to spend those 5 minutes more wisely? So it really, it brought a lot of thought and a lot of way of doing. You can do the same but better. You can do better, or you can kind of completely shift. So because of COVID, or thanks to COVID, I had time to. I was forced. If you would have asked me, I would have said no. I mean, I don't have 4 months without doing anything. I mean, my business gonna die, and there is a lot of people obviously out there that are seeing their business, being having to close or completely close their business. But for me personally, it was a really nice way to think about what I wanted to do next, and realizing that I don't need to put that much drives or that much effort day in, day out. And also it brings different type of perspective, different type of how would you call that, strategy or direction that you can actually put to your business. And it's also down to pivoting. So if you've been used to pivoting before, then a change of plan like this one shouldn't worry you. It just teaches you that, okay, you have a different audience, or your audience have changed. You have to listen to them. You have to understand what they need today, and also empathize with those who were your customer, because while you may consider the fact that maybe you have lost half of it or whatever the situation is, you have to understand what they're going through, why they can't no longer maybe afford your services, and that goes back to the fact that you have to re-engage with your market, understanding what are the new business, the new needs. And that's how you're shifting. That's how you pivot. That's how. So yes, you're not in the same trend as you were, but frankly, after like spending and seeing people dying left and right, do you really want to go back to that? Were you happy in that space? Rethink about that, reconsider all this. So for me, it has taught me a lot from that, and I have gained new partners actually, something that before COVID I wasn't necessarily considering, because it was all about I want to achieve that in a certain way, and because I had time, and time was the issue. Time was a thing that I didn't have, but I had time. I had time to observe. I had time to think. I have time to do nothing actually, and that itself has brought me a different level of wealth in terms of experience. And that's, I don't know if I could have afforded something like that before if it wasn't for COVID. So.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. That's interesting. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Femi and then hand over to Action Jackson.
Right. COVID. Before COVID, so even from the beginning of the year, there were great plans, especially in terms of trying to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the of the company or of the publication. But come March, all those plans had to go out of the window. Simply, for obvious reasons, social distancing, change in business models, and so on and so forth. How have we been able to cope? Number one, I think I've seen COVID as an opportunity of a reset. It's been an opportunity for us to go back to the drawing board. It's been an opportunity to rethink our business model. That is something that is still, that is still continuous. Again, you can imagine that in terms of the print side of things, a number of our outlets were not open, so you couldn't necessarily distribute into some of those outlets. There were some we could distribute into, but then we were also able to use more of our online. And moving forward, those are things that obviously we're definitely going to be focusing on. I think the good thing is that there were certain decisions we had taken over a number of years, especially in recent years, that I think really helped us to sort of, hang in there. So, for example, in terms of running things on a bootstrap, so to speak, and using staff as an example. So, a lot of our staff, going from a time when we had quite a number of full-time staff, we had already started cutting down costs, trying to make sure that for every pound that we were spending, we were getting value for money. We were maximizing those pounds. So rather than use full-time staff, we were using more of freelance staff. And and in the process of doing that, we were still achieving results, probably even better results. And so with the advent of COVID, I could not imagine, even though yes, government came up with a furlough scheme and so on, but I think it's been one less area of pressure in terms of, okay, we've cut costs in certain respects. Even in terms of office space. There was a time I had, I needed a lot of office space because I had a very large team. We were able, even before COVID, we had cut down drastically on that, such that we were not necessarily spending too much money on those areas. I think that was one, so sometimes it's about looking ahead, having a bit of foresight, but nobody could have predicted COVID-19. So I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that one could predict COVID-19 and therefore we made those adjustments because of COVID-19. But I think the message in there is that one must always keep one's eye on the ball. And I think during the seminar, some of the seminars, I think it was the one that Mrs. Shonaya did, there was an emphasis on the fact that you have to keep an eye on your figures. You have to be cost conscious. And look at where the world is today. If you can have companies like Google and Twitter now saying that even most of their staff are going to be working from home. I sometimes, I remember when I started out in business, for some, the idea is that, oh, if you have a business, you don't have a business, you don't really have proper business premises and so on and so forth. It doesn't look as if you're running a business. Some would even go to the extent of going, get, very expensive offices and so on and so forth. But I've always believed that as a business person, you have to be real. And one thing I usually say, especially using what we do as an example, people are not going to judge us by our office. They're going to judge us by our product. They're going to judge us by our service. Our product is the newspaper. So rather than invest or put unnecessary resources in certain areas, we have to make sure that we're continually investing in our product and in our service. And that we have done, and that we continue to do. Again, looking at our website as an example, we've invested in that as a way, because again, and good thing you also had some involvement with the distribution. You can imagine producing a free newspaper and still having to pay distributors to take it to shops, which means we're producing a free newspaper and we're still paying readers to pick up the paper. Whereas we could, we had to sort of rethink that model. That model was okay when there was a lot of advertising. Advertising has shifted a bit to online. Aside from that, if you look at the newspaper industry today, you notice that many of the big boys, so even mainstream publications, have had to pack up. They no longer do their print media. Some have moved online. Some have even gone out of business completely. So I think it's always been about, being able to look at what's going on around you in good time and respond and act accordingly, at the most opportune time.
Wow, that's amazing. I think the key thing there is about being agile, being able to. I think one of the things that Karen mentioned as well, being able to pivot, and also looking at, and I like the perspective that both of you have had. You've had very, very positive outlook on COVID, and looking at the opportunities that COVID has brought rather than focusing on the challenges. So right now, I just want to hand over to Action Jackson to take the stage and run with it. Over to you, sir.
Honestly, this has been a great time with each and every one of you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much, Tolu, Brother Tolu, for making this happen. And I do hope and I trust that all the panels have enjoyed themselves, and everybody that's been participating have had the privilege of being able to listen and be inspired. Listen, they say it's unprecedented times. I think this for us is an opportunity for us to take what we've learned and to run into the future with it. And for me, COVID for me has been a blessing, because I've had to restructure my company, and I've been ideas that I had in 2001, have now come to fruition now. Because now I realize that I don't have to leave my house in order to inspire the world. I can inspire the world from my living room. So which means that I can spend more time with family and I can still impact more people. So sometimes life will bring you opportunities that may seem like a challenge, but please do not complain about the problem in front of you, because hidden inside every problem, there is a gift. Your job is to uncover that gift so that the world can actually see the best of who you are. Very quickly, with the amount of time that we've got left, what I want to do is, I don't know if I can share a screen here. I've got a quote that I wanted to share with you that's really going to really inspire you to really think differently. And the quote is from something that I saw many years ago, and I think it's so key. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm the UK Ambassador for Happiness, and very quickly, that's my job. And you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started in order to be great. It's all about getting started. I don't care how great you are. I don't care how rubbish you think you are. Just get started. I think the quicker you start, the quicker you fall, the quicker you analyze, the quicker you can get back up. It's all about getting started. Listen, you can't read your way into wealth. You have to do your way to wealth. You have to act your way into wealth. There's a stage to read, and there's a stage that you need to take action on what you have learned. This quote by Les Brown is a quote that has transformed my life. Because when I started my business, I thought I had to be number one in order to get started, but I just needed to get started. And that's what's gotten me here. This quote I want you to really meditate on. It was Bruce Lee. He said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." If all you do is take one thing from this last 6 weeks and you go in on it for the next 30 days, and another 30 days, you take another thing, you go in on it, by the time this COVID situation is over, you would have stacked up so much. It's not about the acquisition of knowledge, it is about the execution of information. It's about the execution of information. So everybody watching this, or the attendees, I want you to type this up. It's about the execution of information. Type that in the comments below, please, so that you are actively engaged in the final part of what we're talking about. It is about the execution of information. I remembered once I recorded a video. I was going to send it to an editor to edit this video, and I knew that video was going to take 3 weeks. I said I'll do it myself. I took action, edited it, and I sent it online. And before I knew it, the video had gone viral within 24 hours. Who would have known that if I'd waited 2 weeks, I wouldn't have hit that viral point? Sometimes it's all about taking one thing and doing it consistently. Types of actions. First is the doubting action. We don't even have time for this. 4 types of actions. Yeah, there are those who doubt. The second, and there are those who dabble. They start today and they stop tomorrow. They start today and they stop tomorrow. We don't have time for that. Things are changing so rapidly. That's why you need to take action consistently. You don't have time for Netflix. You don't have time for Disney Plus. You don't have time for scrolling through other people's Instagram pages. The only time you have time for is to build your destiny. Who's to say that this business could be the way in which your family breaks out of poverty for life? You don't know. I know what my business has done to my family. Number 3 are those who do. Okay, they do. And they take what they've learned and they're doing it. Now, if you continuously do and do and do and do, you get to the 4th stage where you're able to dominate, which is a biblical command that we're supposed to be fruitful, replenish, and have dominion. You can't have dominion if you're doubting. You can't have dominion if you're dabbling. You can't have dominion if you're only doing. You can only have dominion if you're doing consistently. I must do consistently. Type that up. I must do consistently. I must do consistently. Doing is not enough. You must do consistently. Look at the bad habits you have in your life. It's because you've been doing them consistently. Some people's clothes have shrunk during the COVID because they've been eating so much, consistently eating. What are the actions you're going to take in order to move you closer to your wealthy place? Very quickly, I think many of us need to be aware of the 7 different challenges you're going to face when you take action. Number 1, you're going to be scared. Take it on. That's cool. Number 2, you're going to feel lazy sometimes. When your mind is overwhelmed, all of a sudden the brain wants to protect you. So it gives you many excuses. Oh, do it later because you're tired today. Laziness is birthed from fear. Fear is the mother of laziness. Fear gives birth to laziness. Why? You're scared, so you find an excuse and you run away. They call you lazy, but really and truly you're scared. Number 3, you begin to doubt. That's another thing that's that. Look out for the doubt in your mind. You don't have time for that. Number 4, frustration. The first time you put out that idea, it's not going to work. The first time you start that Instagram page, maybe you and your mom are the only people that are going to be looking at that Instagram page. The first time you put out that product, some people are not going to like it. That's okay. Keep on pushing, keep on punching, keep on pushing, keep on punching. Number 5, tiredness. Tiredness. Welcome that. Be ready, because as you're punching towards your dreams and towards your goal, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel frustrated. That's cool. Just remember that. Just replenish your energy. Number 6, negative opinion. We don't have time for negative opinion. They will come, welcome them, and delete them, because you've got something to work on. Bear in mind your goal. Bear in mind your dream. And then finally, anxiety. What's the future going to bring? Many of us who've been on here right now, we have faced the greatest challenge of our lives. COVID, for me, took £30,000 a month away from me for the last 3 months. £30,000 a month. Okay, so what do you do when £30,000 a month is taken away from you? What do? You sit back and you bounce back. You find a new idea. I'm not going to focus on the loss. I'm going to focus on the opportunity that this thing has brought to me. But it all comes down to taking action. For the next 21 days, they say it takes 21 days to build a habit. It takes 21 days to build a habit. You've heard it. But the question is, when was the last time you took time to build a habit over the next 21 days? So here's what you're going to do. I call it the rule of 1. The rule of 1, it could be the rule of 3, it could be the rule of 5. It's up to you. But I start with the basics. For the next 30 days or so, one thing every day towards your business idea. Do one thing every day towards your business idea. The next time you are on this phone, do not consume. You must create. Do not consume, you must create. Every activity on this phone should not be for entertainment. It should be for empowerment for your business. What is the one thing you're going to be doing over the next, whether be it following 5 people on Instagram who are related to your business or commenting on 4 people's blogs? Keep the actions on this in line with your business idea. Will you go back over the notes from week 1 and start reading over it and be determined about what you want to do? Pushing yourself one step further. The other thing I'll challenge you to do also is to please build a team. Build a team. Now, you go further when you build a team. If you by yourself, you can go far, but if you build a team, you can fly higher. Who's going to be in your dream team? Connect with the people on here today. You know, we've got so many people on here today. It's all about connection. Connect with one another to build each other up. Yeah. When you connect with people, you can challenge, you can do more, you can go further. This is what it's all about. This is what's all about. When you build a team, I find that I do more when I build a team. You don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started in order to be great. Start that power team today. Get the people in line to start moving. Will you get scared? Yes. Will you be frustrated? Yes. But please remember this. Keep your why in mind. Why are you doing this? You're not doing this to appease your insecurities. You're doing this in order to build wealth for the people who are coming up behind you. Make a list of why you want your business. Business is it's a tough game, and there is a place for you. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started in order to be great. Everybody, please type that up in the comments below. I don't have to be great to get started, but I have to get started in order to be great. I don't have to be great to get started, but I have to get started in order to be great. Now is the time to get started. Now is the time to move. Now is the time to make the mistakes. Now is the time to rise up. Now is the time to build the team. Now is the time to destroy all habits. Now, now, now. The time is now. My name is Action Jackson, UK Ambassador for Happiness. And whatever you do, please, 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 let's shut up. Let's take action. Let's build wealth. Let's impact the next generation. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and a big shout out to all the panelists and everybody that's been on here. I've learned so much this evening, and I trust the rest of the year is going to be amazing. Listen, this is the first half. It's 1-0 to COVID, okay? It's 1-0 to COVID. The second half, let's take back the second half.
Amazing, amazing. Wow, that's very, very powerful and very, very inspiring, Action Jackson. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing those insightful words. So, hey guys, you've all heard it all. There's nothing that I need to add to what has already been said. This is the time for you to take action, and take action now. Don't wait. You know, you start thinking about what is that one thing I'm going to be doing every day towards building my business. You know, we've had someone talking about the ideation side of the business. Start thinking about, how am I going to start building my business idea? How am I going to start building the team to push my business idea? How am I going to start thinking about strategies to reach out to people? And to be honest with you, you don't need to have built the business idea before you start reaching out to people. That should be part of your building process. Start reaching out to those who you think these businesses are going to impact the most, and start getting ideas from them. Because in most cases, these people are going to be a reflection of yourself. So you are actually going to be one of the first consumers of your own idea, because this has come as a result of a problem that you have identified for yourself. So start looking at people who relate to the problem that you have identified, and start bringing them in. These people may actually not just become customers, but they may actually become partners or even key team members in your business. And start thinking about the financial instrument you're going to use in terms of making sure that you're on budget, you don't run out of money, and so on and so forth. So guys, the time for you to take action is now. And what we have said is that for those who are willing to take the action now, we are committed to help you to raise the funds for your business. So thank you so much, everybody, for turning up. Those who are watching us on Facebook Live, those who are here with us on Zoom, and those who are going to watch the videos after. It has been amazing. This has been an amazing experience. Like I said, this has been almost a 12-year long vision that I've had, that by God's grace, and like everybody has said about the taking the positive side of COVID, we wouldn't have been able to do this in this way if not for COVID. So in a way, you can say thank God for COVID. And we are Action Jackson. We are taking it back. We are winning. We need to use what seems to be a setback to become a propelling force to drive us even further than we would ever imagine to go. So thank you everybody for spending this time with us throughout these 6 weeks of sharing wisdom together. But see, it's not the time that you have spent, it's what you're going to do with what you have gained. This would be a waste of time if you don't take action. So I'm looking forward to the wonderful, successful businesses that are going to spring up as a result of these 6 weeks. Thank you so much. And just to let you know, some of the things that we're going to be doing in the future, we are hoping that this will be a yearly thing. The next phase of this is that we're hoping to be doing a webcast that'll be weekly. Don't worry, it won't be for 2 hours. It might be for 30 minutes or thereabout. And we're also going to be creating a Facebook group so that every one of us can be connected together and share ideas together. So thank you once again. Thank you for all the speakers that have spoken. Thank you to all the panelists. You guys are really, all of you are really, really amazing. We really appreciate you. Thank you and have a good night.